A lot of people have it, everyone's heard of it at some point in their lives. Especially in recent years, it's become something people talk about more openly. Therapy, mental health, it's all over social media. More and more people share their struggles and encourage others to get help. Well, for me it's something that's been a part of my life too. Last year, my depression got so bad that I ended up in a psychiatric hospital because of it. How did I get to this point? My story starts early. Due to several factors, including trauma, at the age of 10, I started having depressive episodes. Although back then, of course, I didn't know what depression was and that I had it. I didn't understand what was happening, I just knew that I felt sad and lonely a lot. My diagnosis calls them episodes. These episodes could last anywhere from a few weeks to months or even years. But not all of them felt the same. Some were milder, where I could still manage daily life, but during the severe ones, even simple tasks like brushing my teeth or taking a shower felt impossible. But I also had good phases, really good ones even. Phases in which it was almost easy to forget that I ever struggled with depression. I had severe separation anxiety and it made going to school incredibly hard. I'd cry so much that my teachers didn't know what to do with me. They'd send me to the director's office, try to track down my sister in her classroom, who was only a year and a half older than me, and have her to come talk to me to calm me down. It happened so often that my sister got used to it. Around the same age, I developed disordered eating habits. Food became my escape and my comfort, but as comforting as food felt in the moment, my body became the opposite of comfortable. And being a chubby kid, well, you can imagine how school went. In the hopes of making it all stop, I started dieting at the age of 12. It spiraled quickly. By the time I was a teenager, I wasn't just dieting anymore, I had 2 full-blown eating disorders. Eating disorders are complex. It's not just about food, it's about control too. You try to control your body as a way of dealing with the overwhelming emotions or pain. But in the process, you're starving yourself as well, both physically and emotionally. Just like I didn't know much about depression, I didn't know anything about eating disorders back then. I think that most people didn't. To the outside world, it looked like I was doing great. Losing weight, taking care of myself. I even got compliments. People, especially adults actually, praised me for my self-discipline. Nobody, not even the people close to me, knew about my eating disorders. I knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't want to stop either, so I just kept it a secret. I'd restrict my food so much that I was constantly freezing, angry, irritated, and sad. Then, after years of starving myself, my body started to fight back, and that's when the binging began. You might be wondering, how can someone with anorexia possibly hide it when it seems so physically obvious? But the truth is, not every person with anorexia looks extremely thin. There's a stereotypical image of what an eating disorder should look like. For me, binge eating became the aftermath of years of restriction. After a binge episode, I'd restrict even more, and of course, that only led to a bigger binge the next time. I was around the age of 17 when I realized I had a problem with food. It took me more than 7 years to heal my eating disorders. When you spend years ignoring your hunger and fullness cues, it can take a long time to get them back. So, the eating disorders are in the past, but what about my depression? 2024 was the year I had to face the possibility that my depression might always be a part of me. I had heard psychologists and psychiatrists say it to me before, but part of me still didn't want to accept that. I'd clung to the hope that one day I'd reach a point where I was completely healed. If you saw my recent video, you know the story about my best friend, Tabea. How she went through kidney failure and faced a long, difficult healing process afterwards. Once she was stable, I felt such immense relief and happiness because things finally started looking up for us again. And remember when I said there have been times in my life when it was almost easy to forget that I've ever struggled with depression? That was one of those instances. Once I started struggling again, it all came crashing down. And because I believed everything would stay okay when I wasn't okay anymore, the disappointment felt almost unbearable. I have experienced thoughts in the past, but they never lasted as long as they did this time. Before, they came in brief moments or lasted a few weeks at most, and they felt more like a cry for help, overwhelming and very emotional. Like part of me knew that I didn't really want it. This time though, it was different. I was just exhausted, and the thought of not being here anymore for the first time felt like a relief. It wasn't an emotional outburst, it was almost a logical contemplation of whether life was still worth living, and these thoughts stayed with me for months. Whenever I experienced stable and happy phases, I think the only reason I truly believed it would always stay that way was because I wanted so badly for it to be true. 2024 felt like a turning point because, for the first time, that fantasy was gone. When a person loses all sense of hope, that's when depression becomes truly dangerous. That's why after all of these years of living with depression, this was the first time I needed to be hospitalized. When I arrived at the clinic, the nurse asked me what gave me the strength to come here. I told her that at some point I thought if I'm truly okay with the worst case scenario, then I might as well try one last time. Ironically, not being scared of death anymore took the pressure of life a little bit too, so I decided to hold on to that. Everyone has different experiences in psychiatric clinics, and mine was surprisingly positive. I shared a room with another person, something that felt scary and uncomfortable at first, but led to a few really wholesome conversations. My days had a routine. I woke up around 7:25 to have breakfast at 7:30. Throughout the day, I had different kinds of therapy: one-on-one psychotherapy, group sessions like movement and art therapy, and educational classes where we learned about depression, anxiety disorder, and other mental health topics. In between, there was lunch, and the day ended with dinner. It felt like a safe space because no one had to hide their feelings. At some point, it almost felt warm and familiar. Hey, aber immer hier haben wir ein Kino. The Evil Dead.
Ja, du siehst so komplett.
Sicher Special Effects.
Die finde ich der Hammer. Ciao.
Kino in der Klinik. My psychotherapist at the clinic was amazing. We connected quickly, and after every session, I felt a bit lighter and a bit more hopeful, which meant a lot considering I had arrived at the clinic feeling completely hopeless. I felt like she really believed in me. In our last session, I remember saying, "I guess there's some hope left." Then I asked if I could have her email to send her an update in the future. When she handed me the note with the email, she had also written, "There's more than just hope."
A moment or two to settle the body. But beginning the exercise with the eyes open, looking forward around you. And just
Špijuniro golubiro. Jebeni golub kojeg šalje vlada u javnost da
and with the next act. And just feeling the weight of the body.
Špijuniro golubiro. Jebeni golub kojeg šalje vlada u javnost.
And then just gently bring the attention back to the body.
For anyone who doesn't understand what depression feels like, or for those still holding on to misconceptions about it, I'd like to share what living with depression has been like for me. To make it easier to understand, let's use eczema as a metaphor for my depression. Some people are more prone to developing eczema. Some experience it only once, some deal with chronic flare-ups, and others just have thick skin and never get it at all. When it comes to depression, there are many factors that determine whether someone is prone to it or not. Yeah, there's a lot. Over time, I learned how to manage it, like sticking to a good skincare routine, avoiding triggers, and making healthier choices. The same goes for depression. Therapy, healthy coping strategies, exercise, and a balanced lifestyle can help keep it under control. Now think of a baseline. Above the baseline, there can be flare-ups, but having the right coping strategies makes them easier to handle. Sometimes my skin is totally fine, and that's when it feels like it could never get bad again. But the closer I get to the baseline, the more intense the flare-ups become, and getting below that baseline is when things can get dangerous. There are many factors factors that can push me below my baseline. Extreme stress triggers loss. When that happens, getting back up becomes really difficult. Just like eczema can be triggered by different things for different people, depression works the same way. What might not affect one person at all could completely overwhelm someone else. When you have a really bad eczema flare-up, your usual skincare doesn't work anymore. It's similar for depression. When things get really bad, things that usually help just don't have the same effect anymore. This is why when someone is severely depressed, saying things like, just work out and you'll feel fine again, isn't really helpful. The problem isn't that I don't know what helps. It's that when I hit an extreme low, what usually works literally stops working. At that point, it's purely about survival. Which is also why it's wrong to think that people with depression are just lazy. Dealing with depression and functioning on a daily basis requires a lot more energy than someone whose mental health is well. So it's actually the opposite of lazy. For me, getting out of this low state is extremely difficult without help. Help could come from friends, family, professionals, or even medication. Which brings me to my next point. There are many misconceptions about how antidepressants work, especially the idea that they're just a quick fix to make you feel instantly happy or high. I'm not a professional, but I can explain very simply how the two types of antidepressants I have taken before actually work in the brain. Most common antidepressants like SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, work by affecting the way serotonin functions in your brain. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, which means it helps brain cells, or neurons, communicate with each other. It plays a big role in mood, sleep, appetite, memory, and emotions. When a neuron is activated, it releases serotonin into the synapse, the gap between the neurons. Serotonin then binds to receptors on the neighboring neuron. This binding triggers a signal in the receiving neuron, helping regulate mood, emotional response, and so on. After serotonin has done its job, it's mostly reabsorbed by the original neuron through a process called reuptake. In a healthy brain, this system stays in balance. Enough serotonin is made, released, and cleaned up efficiently. Now, compared to a depressed person, serotonin is pulled out of the synapse too soon, before it's had a chance to fully activate the receiving neuron. That means the mood-regulating message is cut short, or barely delivered at all. And that's where SSRIs come in. SSRIs work by blocking that reuptake process. Basically, they stop the original neuron from pulling serotonin back in so quickly. So what happens? More serotonin stays in the synapse. That means serotonin has more time to bind to the receptors on the next neuron. The feel-good signal can be sent more clearly and fully. The other type of antidepressant I have taken is an NDRI, norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitors. It's an atypical antidepressant. They work similarly to SSRIs, but instead of targeting serotonin, they target norepinephrine and dopamine. These neurotransmitters are involved in attention, stress response, pleasure, motivation, and reward. To put it simply, they don't directly lift your mood in the same way SSRIs do, but they can help you get moving again, feel more motivated, and slowly bring back that sense of accomplishment. And once you start doing things again, your mood can begin to improve over time too. It's an atypical antidepressant because of its indirect approach. I used to think that the solution was to fix my depression, to get rid of it completely. What if instead of trying to work against it, I just tried to work with it? What if instead of seeing it as something that gets in the way of what I want to achieve, I just accept it as part of me? If it's only one part of me, then there's room for all other parts that make me who I am. There's this concept about the inner child, the wounded younger version of us that needs healing and comfort, and the person who can provide that healing is ourselves. I like to think that my inner child is happy now, feeling safe with me. I like to think that she looks up to me for the struggles I went through to heal her. Last year, I made the decision to live. And for as long as I live, I'll keep her safe within me. And together, we'll move through this life. Healing, growing, and never alone.
Happy birthday.